try to bring one of these cartoonists out from their hidden rock underground in the dark into the wild blue, which is you, the public. So WonderCon's a great spot for that, and Paul has been showing me around and giving me some leads. So thank you. I'm turning it over to Paul here.
Well, I don't think his program that's going to happen is quite good. Really interesting reality show on cartoons. So it'll be coming up soon enough. Yeah, but the first.
You brought me here, but I don't know how to do it. I don't have. Well, there's an AV problem. I'm the moderator. I'm the one who's supposed to do this stuff, Paul. But anyway, the panel here today is East Meets West. It's about Paul Power Publications here to launch that. And right here, he is the storyboard artist for such films as Predator, The Rundown, The Sixth Day. He also worked with the late great Alex Toth on Super Friends, so some of those panels of Superman flying were drawn by this man right here. Stand up, Paul, stand up. Former boxer, former judoka from Sydney, Australia, but now making his home in Los Angeles, California. He is Paul Power. And to my left, Paul's old friend and associate, best known to you as the inker of Jack Kirby and such books as Commandy, the Last Boy on Earth, The Demon, Captain America, The Eternals, also an artist for Disney for 30 years. From Medford, Oregon, Mike Royer! So Paul, tell us about East Meets West. Tell us about Paul Power Publications.
All right, well, back in '72, when I was 16, I created these characters, East Meets West, which was basically based on the film Red Sun with Toshiro Mifune and Charles Bronson. And I was also drawing another character called Professor Om. And since I'm a big Western fan, you know, love John Ford, love Gunsmoke, Cheyenne, all that stuff, I wanted to draw Western. And so that's how I got started as an illustrator in commercial art and such. And led me to work on other strips like Airhawk and Flying Monkeys. It was an adventure strip that was in Australia and Europe. Anyway, that all led, the East Meets West led me into a career as a storyboard artist for film. So it was very good to me. So here I am, you know, at the age of 56, finally putting out something that I had created when I was 17. The one mistake I made was that I had submitted East Meets West to Scott Rosenberg at Malibu Comics, and Scott subsequently did Men in Black, which was good for him. And then they approached him about another project. He said, "Oh yeah, I've got this sci-fi western, Cowboys and Aliens." And I went, "Hey, wait a minute, that's my book." So we had a little court case that didn't go anywhere, but I wasn't going to take it lying down. So I finally said, while talking to a lot of my friends who knew about it, Mike knew about it when?
Well, Paul and I have known each other for almost 40 years. And when he came to the States, when we got together, we were both unmarried, and we spent a lot of time shooting pool and stuffing money into G-strings. But every evening started and ended the same way, going over his pages of East Meets West with Professor Om and Big Rock Warrior and I can't pronounce it. And Charles Bronson and Cowboys and Aliens. So I understand that this weekend there is a presentation dealing with the new motion picture Cowboys and Aliens. I just want you to know that there are a bunch of us who've been reading Cowboys and Aliens since 1980.
Yeah, so I'm suggesting to you, do not submit your stuff to Platinum or Scott Rosenberg. Not a good idea. But anyway, so apart from that, I revamped it and finally put it out. So the first issue will be coming out next month, and it's 64 pages. But the backup is some Australian stories that are quite good. And I've got Mike in there after knowing him for 40 years. I finally got a free piece of artwork out of him. So, you know, it's a long time coming, but I always liked the genre of science fiction and Western. Occasionally it's been played around with in comics, like was it Spoon, Jackson, and Charlton Comics. And I thought, well, I'd like to play with this too, but a little differently. So basically what I did is I just incorporated all these things that I really liked growing up as a kid, and just mixing them together. So what I tried to do was if John Ford had got together with Milton Caniff to make a comic strip, this is what I tried to do. And the other thing about East Meets West that was good for me, when I worked with Alex Toth in '73 on Super Friends in Sydney, I showed him this stuff, you know, the earlier pages, and he quite liked it. So he took me under his wing, and that all went on for the next, from like '73 through to like '84. We were really quite close, and in '86 was like the end of it for a while. And my only contact with Alex after that, because he wouldn't talk to me, was Daryl here. Yeah, Daryl's a very good friend of Alex, you know, I mean, a true friend of Alex.
Paul, for the, you know, I know 99% of the people here know who Alex Toth is, so maybe you and Mike should let the 1% that don't know who Alex is, give us a little bit about Alex.
Well, actually, I'll let Mike do that.
Well, I was familiar with Alex Toth's work from the comic books that I saw as a kid. I will never forget a story about the French Foreign Legion and danger trails that I just thought was superlative. And then I was also a real avid EC comic book fan, and he did a few stories about jet pilots. But I had also read somewhere that he was a big fan of Noel Sickles, and when I moved to Southern California in 1965, I had a whole stack of Noel Sickles, Scorchy Smith, and I looked him up in the phone book. There he was in Pasadena, and I called him and I said, "Hey, Mr. Toth, I know that you like Noel Sickles. I got a bunch of these strips. Would you like to have them?" He said, "Yeah, come on out to the house." So to the chagrin of his wife and children, I was there for 8 hours. I had dinner with the family, and we took a break to watch, it was a summer rerun of that was the first season of Johnny Quest, and heard stories about that. And so Alex and I, our association was as friends who had similar interests. And then months later, when we bumped into each other at a motion picture screen cartoonist union meeting, he says, "Kiddo, what are you doing here?" I says, "I'm working on Marvel superheroes." And he had a love for Errol Flynn. If you've ever seen Bravo for Adventure, you know that he was a Flynn enthusiast. And he would come down to my house, and I was a 16mm collector, and I would run Errol Flynn movies. And I remember one night watching his print of The Adventures of Don Juan in a sweatbox or a small room at Hanna-Barbera. And he loved fencing, and some of his model sheets for the Three Musketeers, anybody that ever wants to draw anything about fencing should get those model sheets, because he even took fencing when he was a young man, so he knew what he was drawing. But Alex was a fascinating character. I don't think he ever grasped that there were those of us who loved Alex Toth, the man, the personality. I think he tied together a person and their art. Right. And I've babbled on a lot here. I don't know.
Well, just one thing really quickly. Like, the only way you could watch these movies by choice without just waiting for Channel 44 to show them once a year, or whatever the channels were in Los Angeles, was to actually collect these prints. So this is a little bit before the home video era, you know. So these guys were really devoted to plowing through the dumpster bins of the old RKO studios and Paramount and Warner Brothers to get their hands on these movies. It took a little bit more effort. There was no Amazon yet. But how did you and Paul Power meet? I know it was through Toth, but there's a bit of a story there.
Actually, it was before he met Toth. I was inking Jack Kirby at DC, and I got a little package from Australia. And I opened it up, and it was this miniature reel-to-reel tape, and I went, "What the devil is this?" I had to go out and buy a miniature tape recorder to play it on, and it was a fan letter from Paul Power.
Too many questions I put on tape.
Yeah, he'd ask me questions, and then I'd fill the tape and send them back to him, answers, and the first photograph he sent me was a photograph of Paul with shoulder-length hair and a huge black eye, and he informed me that he was like the 5th-ranked bantam amateur boxing champion of the world.
No, in Australia.
Oh, well, Australia, for you, it was the world.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a whole continent, people. It's a whole continent.
And when Paul came to the States after meeting Alex, well, when he met Alex, I probably should let you tell this, but
No,
I find it a fun story. He mentions to Alex Toth that he knew me. And Alex was amazed at what a small world it was, because I met him in '65.
Yeah.
And he met you in, what, 73?
73. What happened is that on Super Friends we had a lot of, because there was a comic book industry in Australia, and so we had guys like, these names won't mean anything to you, but they could really draw. They're really great artists. And Hal English and Robert Smith, Anthony Chan, and anyway, we all went to the pub, and I didn't drink at all, and I wasn't at the pub drinking age, but when I knew that Alex was there, I turned up with a bag full of comics. So he didn't expect anybody to know who the hell he was, you know, it's like he's come down under to work on this show, and so I said, let's take him to the pub. So we did, and there was a lot of anti-American sentiment at the time, you know, that bastard Nixon and all that, and Alex turned around and said, well, I didn't vote for him. And they went, oh, good for you, and then everything was fine. But he was blown out because I said, I remember, he said, how did you know my stuff? I said, I've known your stuff since Space Angel and Clutch Cargo. He said, I didn't work on Clutch Cargo. I said, oh, yes, you did. And he said, oh, no, I didn't. I said, yes, you did. And he goes, no, I didn't. I said, you did. And he goes, yes, I did. He said, how did you know? I said, I really know your stuff. So it was great. It was great fun and friendship. Began from there, and he was quite concerned about me because I was lifting weights and, you know, boxing and everything, wrestling and all that. He's going, not a good thing to do if you're an artist. I said, listen, you can't get in the ring and worry about breaking your hand or your nose or anything like that. You're in the wrong business. I said, but I actually like it. You know, I'm from a boxing, wrestling, bodybuilding family. I mean, so it was all like health nuts, and yeah, it was pretty crazy in my house.
Yeah, you even had an association with the young Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was telling. Well, I don't know. Do you want to hear this about Arnold? All right. Well, I met Arnold in '72 because my brother was a competitive bodybuilder. A great name. My name's a great name for a cartoonist, a fighter, boxer, or a bodybuilder. Power. It's a good name.
He didn't make it up. It's his real name.
It's Irish. Anyway, so we meet Arnold, and we take him to a pub. See, that's the thing you do in Australia, you go to the pub. So there's Arnold there, and I go, you know what, Arnold? I said, you'd be a really good Tarzan. He said, Paul, I'd make a wonderful Tarzan. I said, yeah, but what about, I said, yeah, but you've got to get rid of that accent. He said, what accent? And then he met my sister, and that's a whole other story.
We'll save that for questions from the audience, Paul. But since we were talking about Alex Toth earlier, the first publication from Paul Power Publications is, in fact, some never-before-published Alex Toth work, John Fury in Japan. Paul really spent a lot of years trying to bring this to life. This book also has the last interview with Alex Toth, which Paul had conducted. I believe there was one session that was 5 days before Toth died, and Paul had asked me to transcribe it because he was staying at my house for a couple of weeks, and I was working on some other story, and he heard how fast I could type. You know, that's what I can do with my hands. He can kill people with his hands. He can draw beautiful pictures. I can type really fast.
Well, so, despite the fact that we're all friends, if we weren't friends, we would highly recommend John Fury and this last interview with Alex Toth.
But yeah, Paul sends me the tape, and I'm going through, you know, Toth's obituary in the New York Times. And I realized that this tape that Paul had sent me was 5 years before the man, or 5 days before the man passed away, and it's just transcribing that. That was kind of a heavy job, you know. Just,
yeah, it was.
It's all in there, you know. The interview, the beautiful artwork, beautiful coloring. He's really put out a top-notch product.
Oh,
so
thanks.
tell us about John
Fury. It's
Fury.
available here, but yeah, the John Fury strips I saw through the first 8 pages through Richard Kyle's Wonderworld. Was it Wonderworld? Yeah. And Daryl's a good friend of Alex, a really good friend. Anyway, I'll stick to the John Fury thing. I saw it in Wonderworld, and this is when I was working with Alex. He gave me a copy, And he said, yeah, I have the rest of the strips. And nobody had done anything with them, and I got them a long time ago. I guess you have a copy of them too. But I had to do a lot of retouching on it as well, which was kind of iffy, because by the time I got the copy, it was a blue line thing, because how did you do it, Darryl? It was on a mimeograph, right? Yeah, you know those old mimeograph drums? He had to actually do the artwork directly on the drum itself. Oh, here's Steve Olive. Hey, get up here. Killer colorist. He colored the cover here. And he's actually doing my East Meets West. Say hello to Steve here.
Hi, everybody.
Anyway, so I always wanted to print this up because I said, well, would you like to see this in print? He said, oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I said, well, I'd like to do it. He said, well, go ahead. So years later, when I found out IDW was doing it, I said, those sons of bitches. Richard Carl said, put the book out. So I did, because I gave a copy of it to Howard Chaykin. And I told him, I said, Howard, whatever you do not pass this on. Big mistake. He passed it on, so we put the book out with the interview. And I'm sorry, I misspelled your name at the front, man. That was a typo from
You
Tom.
found a new way to do it. Usually my first name would get off, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, that was, and when Alex was in hospital, a lot of people were talking about how much they liked Alex and everything and all this, but I tell you what, I only ever saw you and I in there visiting him.
Well, if I hadn't been 700 miles away, I would have been there.
Yeah,
it's funny, we all have stories about, we all loved Alex, but I don't think there's one of us that, with you as an exception, who didn't have a period of estrangement with Alex.
Oh, yeah. Maybe Darryl didn't, but yeah.
I hadn't talked to Alex in a long time, and Paul called me and he says, you know, Alex is in the hospital. Call him. And I'm so glad he did, because I did call Alex. And you know, he seemed genuinely pleased that I called, and it's like the estrangement didn't exist anymore. God only knows what caused it, you know.
What helped, I'll tell you. One year, 2005 Comic-Con, I took a tape recorder around and I talked to people, you the ones I talked to, and said, go ahead and say something to Alex, just kind of let him know you're out there. And I played the tape for him when I got back to his home. He'd forgotten about it. So I played it again. And when your voice came up, he just went, that bastard, I miss him. I want to hear from him again. That's where it kind of kicked up there.
Well, I'm glad that Paul encouraged me to call him. I remember at a San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, wait, I've got to say this. So I get on the phone, and I'm downstairs from the hospital, right? It's across from Disney. What's the name of that hospital?
St. John, St. Mary.
St. Jude's or something.
St. Joseph.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, so I'm down there, and I said, listen, have you called him yet? I'm calling Mike in Medford. He goes, no, I haven't. I said, well, call him now. It's going to take me like 10 minutes to get up there. He said, oh, okay. I said, no, call him right now. So he doesn't. I get up there, you know, as I get up there, the phone rings.
Well, I'm talking to Alex, and he says, oh, I got to go, somebody's here. We probably could have talked an hour or more, but Paul walks into the room, and of course Paul didn't know that, or Alex didn't know that Paul had encouraged me to call Alex, but it was just, I don't know, it was just neat to be called Kiddo again by Alex Fellow.
Now, the funny thing was, I called him up, he said, what the hell, he hung up on me. I said, no, it's because I was there, don't worry about it. Because we used to spend, I don't know how long you spent with him. I know one time you were there for quite a while, but I used to spend an average of 2 to 5 hours with him. And as we were talking, you know, I told him, I said, there's a couple of things we never ever did, and that's in this book. And I took photos of him with the other cartoonists in Sydney, because we had to get together, and he took photos of me with them, but we never ever got a photo together. So while he was in hospital, he said, you got a camera? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I'll take a picture. So we did. But then the Toe family got upset about it. And I said, hey, man, you know, it's like...
There are stories I could say about them. I'll leave that for some other time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's understandable to a degree, but you must understand, if you knew Alex Toe, you could not make him do anything he didn't want to do. So, very rarely... Yeah, you had to wind him up.
Sometimes.
But the thing is, Alex was a very generous guy, and if he really liked you, that was it. But he was bipolar, so odd things could piss him off.
Well, at some point in the late 70s, early 80s, for 4 years I was unmarried and connected with my childhood sweetheart. We are still very close, and it's because we married other people. I'm sure if we married each other, it would have never worked. But I invited her to a back in the days when they had a banquet at the Comic-Con and they gave out the Inkpot Awards. But I had my childhood sweetheart with me, who I hadn't seen in 20 years, at the dinner, and he and Gala and Miriam and I sat at the same table. And he turned to me and he says, "You really love this woman, don't you?"
Yeah.
I mean, he could tune into that kind of stuff.
Oh, in the back of the room there, originally from Pacifica, California, but now making his home in San Francisco. Let's have a big round of applause for Eisner Award winning inker Steve Lealoha.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's a good ways around. Now, I want to say something. Oh,
Buddy,
I'll sit next to
yeah, I got,
What's your name?
hey, you know, Paul Power is how I met Steve Lealoha. When I first went to Steve Lealoha's house, he had all these pages of Paul's. And they were the pages of East Meets West.
Hundreds.
How long did you have those pages, Steve?
For about 25 years.
So when is East Meets West coming out, Paul? It's coming out soon.
Next month.
Next month. So when you see a page of East Meets West, you'll see maybe like a rocket ship, because I don't think Steve, did you finish a whole page? You just find a detail of a page and.
I finished the occasional page and the occasional cover and a few panels here and there.
Yeah. So there'll be one panel of
all
a.
the fun stuff. Let Paul finish it all.
Of a spaceship shooting lasers at cowboys, that's Steve, and then how many inkers did you have on this book? You had Tony Salmons do some work.
Well, Tony did some drawing because he was living at my place, and you know, I'd lay everything out, and then I'd con all these other guys who I knew, you know, with beer. Beer is very good, and having a good time. They go, "Oh yeah, I'll work on that." Yeah. Well, he used to warm up on my pages before he did all the good stuff.
I remember doing stuff with a guy riding a pterodactyl, and all kinds of, with jet planes shooting at them.
I know, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Here's a description that perfectly describes East meets West. Power, passion, and a labor of love.
And Mr. Olaf, how did you get roped into this? You know, this is Paul and all the people he's roped into working on East Meets West, or a fraction of them. They're, you know,
well,
Paul commands an army.
I've known Paul forever, and I've been hearing about this project since about the mid-'70s. You know, and I'd see an occasional page here and there, and then last year, when I was just kind of floating around looking for something to do, I ran and talked to Paul one day on the phone, and he said, "Hey, you want to color East Meets West?" So I kind of said, "Sure." But partly I'm doing it because I know he's been working on it so long, and since I've got some kind of unfinished projects that I've done on my own that are hanging out there, I wanted to help him get it out and finally get it done. So
Yeah,
that's
they're
how
all,
I did it.
as we say, they're all good mates. I mean, I used to be insufferable with Steve, but Steve's like a Buddhist monk in some way. He's very cool and calm and collected, and I'd be like, "No, I want you to finish this all in brush." And I go, "Oh yeah, sure." He just do it wave one, and I go, "Oh, that's great, that's great." He did a great job on the cover, the first cover. That I'm really happy with. Oh yeah. Oh, that's your copy. Yeah. Anyway, I've got copies for sale if anybody wants them. You know, selling them for $8, not at the cover price. But
This is Neil Adams.
yeah, Neil did that. Yeah. I had Neil Adams. I got a desk at his studio in Burbank at Continuity, and I bring in some drawing. And Neil's a funny guy. Any of you guys know Neil at all?
It's funny is the word.
Yeah. I was all excited about meeting Neil Adams, and I called Steve and I go, Steve Lealoha, and I go, "Steve, I'm going to meet Neil Adams. I'm going to interview him for Comics Interviews. I'm really looking forward to it." He says, "Oh, that's interesting." And I go, wait a minute, what do you mean? He says, "Oh, you'll find out, you know." There's 7 guys in Neil. They're all fun, but you never know. And he never pays a compliment, really. He goes, "Yeah, that's all right." Oh, wait a second. So I come up with this drawing, and I go, "Well, here." He said, "What are you working on?" This. He said, "Oh, I said, "You want to ink it?" Just like that, you know. Thinking he'd say no. He goes, "Yeah," and he has a crushing deadline. He puts it down. New York's onto him about the storyboard. He goes, No, I want to do something for fun here. And he inks that. I couldn't believe it. And it cost me nothing. Ah, what a guy.
Mike, your Neil Adams story?
Well, when I was at Disney, part of my job when they would do read-along comic books that would be related to a film that was coming out, I produced a couple of Dick Tracy's and then did a 3D Rocketeer. And Dave Stevens didn't like the first artist that I had chosen to do it. He said, take it to Neil Adams in continuity. And if I have an ulcer, it's a result of taking the book to continuity. And, oh, well, I don't want to tell you the story. It's when I left Disney, the staff position, continued to work for them full-time for another 7 years for the Disney stores. But when I left, I had a flat file with all the original art of the 3D Rocketeer. And I talked to his office manager, Eric Knight, and I said, look, I'm not supposed to do this, but I understand the value of original art to artists. Now, I laid out all 44 pages, and anytime Neil made a change, Ray Zone got after him. He says, Mike is doing 90s 3D, you're doing 70s, do it the way he did. Anyway, they did the finished artwork. My last day at the studio, that artwork went home with me, and then I took it to Eric and I said, all I want is just 4 pages of it.
You should have taken them.
Yes, well, I'm an idiot. Years later, Paul is at continuity, and he says, you know, he called me, he says, Mike, he says, why didn't you get those 4 pages? And I said, oh, Eric was an easy promiser. And so you tried to get them back 4 pages for me, and I got a call from Neil Adams saying, it's very important that the artist has his original art. And I wanted to go, listen, buddy, the only reason you have it is because I stole it for you.
Yeah, no, I had a big argument with Neil about that. You know, I said, oh, you're the great, you know, crusader for other comic book artists, yet you screw my friend over. What's that? Because I had a part in him getting that job as well. And it would have led to even bigger jobs for continuity. But Neil's funny, and I think Steve can back me up here. Is that, yeah, well, all right, maybe. All right. Well, Neil's the sort of guy, like, he did the Nasonex commercials, the original ones, you know, with Banderas doing the voice, yeah. And they were great, designed it, but he refused to give the client what they wanted. He said, oh, no, my idea is better. I said, maybe so, but it's their pizza. And, you know, if you don't want any anchovies on your pizza, it's like, hey, get me what I want, you know. So, Neil, that was a beautiful contract that went sour. Same with Disney. He would have got a $3 million contract out of it. But it's got to be Neil's way. I mean, it's nice, but boy, you'd have to be a billionaire to do that.
In June of, I think, 1991, or maybe, yeah, there was a special issue of Starlog magazine, and it was devoted to what they considered the 2 best 3D comic books of the year. One was the Batman Joker comic, and the other was the Disney 3D Rocketeer. And Ray Zone, bless his heart, right in the middle of the article, they quote Ray Zone as saying that the full success of this book as a result of Mike Royer.
Yeah, well, Mike laid it out, so Neil couldn't do his wacky stuff. But
I respect Neil as an artist and as an articulate speaker in panels. There's nobody that I think is more articulate than Neil can be.
Yeah, no, he's a very charming fellow. Steve, you want to comment on East Meets West at all? The pages you worked on? Your experience on it?
They were fun to do. I'm anxious to see it printed.
What? Was it from issue number 1 or 2, or which?
I was never really entirely clear what issue I worked on.
No, he was working on a whole other story, because I've done actually 400 pages of this thing. And then there's 200, and in number 1 he did the cover and an interior page, and that's it from Steve on that one.
Just on a little note, coming in a little bit late to Paul's project, one of the things that's been kind of challenging is Paul isn't very technologically savvy.
Yeah, I'm a dumb
to say the least. So it's like pages are numbered weird, they're scanned into weird sizes, all different things. It's always they're sending me files, and I'm kind of going like, Paul, I'm not sure what I can do with this stuff. I need it this way. It's been a communication lesson for me.
Yeah, like you have to have a sense of humor to work with me.
You got to take on the Zen approach.
Yeah. Luckily, they like me. I can't very well fire myself. But I would get fired.
Why don't we see if there's any questions
Oh,
out there in
yeah.
the audience? You know,
Yeah.
let's get some. Any questions for this panel? You've got Paul here, renowned storyboard artist. Questions about East Meets West. Questions about Royer's work with Kirby or Disney. Olive and two multi-Eisner Award-winning Steves at the table here. So let's open it up to questions. Anybody have any questions?
Allison's working on Walt Simonson reprint.
Oh, yeah, we just, the Thor Omnibus, it's 1,100 pages, it's Walt Simonson's entire run, plus a lot of little doodads that we completely gave it a whole new look. We kind of did it.
The original artwork.
Exactly, it's all beautiful scans, and we did a lot of extra cleanup. Walt and I worked really close with him, and it was one of the things that was really cool is that he knew that this would probably be the last best chance for this particular series, which is pretty well beloved by a lot of people, to be done right. So we went through, we did tons of all sorts of line art corrections, cleanup, lettering things, everything that he thought that was a problem with it, we took care of it. I'm really hoping that it comes out. It's going to be it's a 1,100 page thick omnibus, which is coming up obviously because of the Thor movie, but I think it'll be something to look forward to. It's obvious, for me, it's some of the best work I've done probably in 15 years.
Except for what he did for me. No, actually, I've seen some of the pages, and they're just drop dead gorgeous. I think all comic books, if they're being reprinted to be resold to a new audience or fans or us fans that loved all that stuff before, that it behooves the comic book companies to put the real care in, because they're asking for your money. You should give more bang for their buck.
And one point I'd like to make about these things too, that Walter had a definite idea about the project. He wanted it not to look like a modern comic book. He said this was an old school comic, and so we approached it with old school colors. He wanted it to be bright and punchy. Then I couldn't use colored line art like everybody uses for all the special effects and everything. Because he felt like if you do that, it takes away from the black line art quality of this work. So, but it was really kind of fun. It was like, you know, going back in time kind of and finding this niche so that it will not look like everything else on the stands right now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've only seen like 4 pages, but it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I went, wow, that's well worth it. I mean, great timing too, because it looks like the Thor movie is going to be great. The Captain America film looks pretty awesome. I'm just sorry I never worked on it. Oh, yeah, that's great.
So I just showed it. I forgot I brought a few proofs along from the thing, but couldn't bring them all. They're stacked that.
Yeah, it's like a Bible.
I don't go to contemporary movies very often anymore. I made the mistake of going to see The Green Hornet, which on the one hand I thought was very entertaining, but it's The Green Hornet, it sucked rubber dunkulums. But I had never seen Superman Returns, and it turns out my favorite sequence in the film, when I was relating this to Paul, and it turned out it was the sequence that he storyboarded in Superman Returns, and that's where the airplane is about to crash into the baseball field.
Paul, why don't you tell us a bit about storyboarding? You know, because it's an art. It's much like stunt work. It's kind of an unsung piece of Hollywood. You know, even with all the digital effects we have, it still has to be drawn by someone. You know, it still has to be visualized in that cave painting way. So
yeah.
Tell us a bit about the art of storyboarding.
Yeah, it is kind of like cave painting. I relate to storyboards as, I got into storyboards because I was at J. Walter Texas when I was about 14 and a half. I just got kicked out of high school. Yes, I got kicked out of high school. Anyway, so I go there was a paste-up guy, and a sketch artist didn't come through with his storyboard, and I knew one of the DPs, the director of photography, and he said, well, we need this, and everyone was busy in there, and I'd show them East Meets West. Well, I didn't have East Meets West then, I had Professor On, but I'd show them some of my stuff, and they said, listen, give it to Paulie. So I drew my first storyboard, and I actually went on the set to see this commercial. It was a Cadbury's commercial being done, and then a few others I did after that was a John Wayne commercial. John Wayne shot a commercial for Hush Puppies, which was great. You want to know about that commercial? It's kind of funny. Well, I had this shot coming down, and it comes into a little hacienda, you know, and with a fountain and everything, and it's on his boots, and he's wearing spurs, and you hear the jingle, jangle, jingle, and then the camera booms up, and he's at the fountain there, and we see in the shot 2 guys have been hung, and their feet are dangling. And there's John Wayne, he goes, you know, I've met a lot of bad, I can't do his voice, he goes, you know, I've met a lot of bad dudes in my time. And I said, these guys were the baddest, but at least they had the good taste. And he grabs the toe and he shakes and says, to wear hush puppies. Great commercial, you know. So I got to meet John Wayne, and it was like, he was a really cool guy. But this is it. I didn't realise until I was 15 years into storyboarding on films and commercials that this was my vocation. I thought I'd be drawing comics for Marvel or DC. But then when I did get my chance to do that, I went, nah, I don't think I want to work for these guys. So, and I was having a good time in film, except for doing my own comic book. But to do storyboards, I equate it more to like adventure strips, you know, daily adventure strips, where you fill in the gaps for the camera moves. So, you know, it's like acting with a pencil. So, oh, yeah, Road Warrior? Yeah, all right, yeah. I worked on a little film called Mad Max 1 and 2, which was called Road Warrior. And I was working with George Miller. And George says, yeah, it's kind of like a punk comic book thing. So I came up with the toughest homosexual on the planet, Wes. And I had, even the feral kid has the hair, the Professor on hair with the streaks. You know, and I came up with a gag where the fingers come flying off with the boomerang, you know, the guy's going, I mean, I put in some wicked gags in movies, and most of the time I figure they're not going to do it. Like in The Rundown, did anybody see The Rundown at all?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm in that. I shoot The Rock in that movie. But the scene that we have with the monkeys, it was just supposed to be attacked by monkeys. They're upside down. There's no monkeys in Brazil, South America, you know, not like that. They brought one. So we had these hybrid wacky baboons. So what I did in one panel, I actually had the monkeys in heat, and they jump on the rock and they're like having a go at him. And he's like, I can't do anything. And I show it to Peter Berg. I go, well, here's your scene. He goes, hey, yeah, that's good, Power Pack. Yeah, I like it. He goes, whoa. I said, yeah, he goes, oh, and he goes, ha, ha, ha. I love it. I said, yeah, it's a joke. He said, no, I really love it. He said, this is great, we're going to do it. I said, it's just a joke, man, you know. And he goes, no, I'm going to shoot this. Invariably, these gags always end up in the films. And so he said, but there's good news and bad news with this, Paulie. I go, what's that? He says, good news, we're going to do it. All right. Bad news is you have to tell The Rock that he's got to do it. And I'm like, oh, I don't like that. So I go back to the trailer with two other storyboard artists and I are working, and the door comes flying open, and there's The Rock going, did you draw this? And I went, yeah. He says, are you expecting me to do this? I said, yeah. He goes, I'm going to do it, goddammit, let's go have lunch. I was like dying. But later on, because I do judo and such, you know, I train with The Rock, and I'm quite strong for my size anyway, but I was going to throw him in taitoshi, shoulder throw, but I thought, oh, he's perfect for a kataguruma, which is like a fireman's carry. You get between the legs and you grab him and just dump him over. Well, I do a snap with you know, yeah, so I get him in the nuts. Boom! And I really jump. So you get the inertia like in ballet. And boom, I snap him down. Well, he knew I was going to do taitoshi, and he was taking the fall for me, you know, because we were just going to shoot it for fun. But when I did that, he was not happy. So he gets up, and I feel like Jerry Lewis in that boxing movie. I'm like racing around the studio, everyone's laughing their asses off, and he's like mad, man. I mean, like really mad. Well, he finally gets me, and he goes, oh yeah, how do you like it, Paulie? Luckily we had these 3-foot rubber mats, because we do some pretty crazy stunts in that movie. And he grabs me by the neck, and he slams me down, you know, like he goes from the neck, and real quick, it shifts from my neck, and I'm like, oh shit. And he grabs me and slams me down, and goes, how do you like that, Paulie? I go, good.
Oh, did you have another encounter with The Rock's nuts during the filming of that?
Oh, yeah.
You're looking for peas?
Yeah, if I was of that persuasion, it'd be great fun, but you know, I'm acting. But if you saw the film, I take the ring off him, you know, I'm the plot point. They couldn't cut me out if they wanted to. So I shoot him with a beanbag, he goes down, I walk over and say, you all right, mate, are you okay? I just went to work in mate like 3 times. So I did it. I had to put my hand in his pocket and get the Super Bowl ring. well, you know, I'm in there, I don't break character, and I'm going, oh, wait a minute, that's not the ring. I've got to do this thing 5 times, and the last time I said, oh, I've had it with you, so I give his nuts a twist, and he like levitates, and I go, cut. But in between takes, he goes, why'd you do that? I said, the Rock's a puff, it's Batman. He's a puff, he's trying to screw me out. People are like cracking up. Anyway, there's another part to it. It's like, I was like, why weren't you wearing any underpants, man? I said, you know, he said, well, I'm going to the Playboy Mansion. You want to come with me? I went, yeah. But the women in wardrobe were ironing his underwear. I mean, who does that?
I don't know how many of you remember Bob Newhart's last TV series, Bob, but he played a cartoonist. And for those of you who remember seeing the show, whenever they would show pages of supposed Bob's comic book art, it was drawn by Paul. And you usually see Paul in the comic book studio office area, walking around and doing things. And I remember one night watching the Adventures of Lois and Clark, and here's Paul again.
Yeah, I played a bionic boxer in that. I shape up to Superman, like, and then I go, oh, forget this. That was good. You know, that was. You know, I get asked occasionally to act, and I actually studied acting at NIDA because of Alex Toth. He said, you know, I think you should do some acting as well. And I really thought of that, and I said, well, acting would be really good for me as a cartoonist. And it was. It was great fun. And it worked in what I'm doing now, because it really is acting with a pencil. And if you're a halfway decent cartoonist, you're a bit of an actor anyway, unless you're really introverted. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. I've enjoyed it. And my mates here have always helped me out, and I'm sure I've driven them crazy, but they put up with me anyway. So I'm very thankful. Anything else, you guys?
Any more questions? Paul, what would you have done to Steve, though, if a mysterious fire broke out and burned all the kids East Meets West?
Oh,
20 years or so.
What could I do? There's nothing I could do. I'd be very sad. You know, well, I just have to redraw it. Oh, God, I hate that.
There were digital copies of this stuff well into this century, you know.
Yeah.
It was just a big folder full of pages, you know, totally old school.
Well, actually, there was a cover I'd given Steve, and he said, no, I don't have it. So I had to redraw it, and he re-inked it. And then when we picked up all the artwork, there was the cover.
Well, that would be the 5th Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones and the Lost Pages of East Meets West.
I tell you, I'll be happy if anybody buys it, but I had a good time doing it. It's kind of fun, irreverent. It's kind of, you know, it's me. It's cheeky, you know. That's what I like to do. It's got a bit of humor.
Question over there.
If there's a fire, don't worry, they're all on my computer.
Ah, there she is. Yeah, how are you? No, it's been, it's been, what a ride. So Steve Olive is colouring issue 2.
Working on it. I would be, if I wasn't here, I'd be home working on it.
64 pages in that one.
Actually just got started. Been laying in flats and then just started looking through and trying to read the story, and that's when I would find things like, oh, this page is corrupted. This page is weird. You know, and then we found a few typos, so I'm kind of playing a little. I think with everybody editing and helping a little bit here, it'll come out and it should look pretty nice.
Yeah, I need all the help I can get, and I grabbed it, you know, but yeah, it's nice. It's like, sometimes in life you go, well, there's something that you want to do and you don't get to do it, and in some ways I don't care if I make any money off it, which I won't, but just to get it out, see it done, and go, right, on to the next thing, which is learning how to play the guitar.
Now, what else do you have in East Meets West? Because there's, you know, Paul's books are kind of, they kind of remind me of heavy metal in a way. The magazine, you know, we're going to have East Meets West, but he has other stuff coming, and overviews of Australian artists.
Yeah. Well, I did, when I worked with John Dixon on Airhawk and the Flying Doctors, now John Dixon's style was kind of a cross between Al Williamson and Milton Caniff in some ways, from that school. And, you know, they were all familiar with his work, and I worked with him when I was 15, and he came out here. He lives down in San Diego, but when he stayed with me, he was kind of bored, and I was working on a film called Hero with Dustin Hoffman. So he came in and helped me do storyboards on that. Yeah, it was alright. Yeah, it was kind of fun. There's a funny story there. Dustin used to walk around and goes, "Oh, I love these storyboards by George." And I go, "George?" No, Roger. He said, "I love these storyboards by Roger." So I go around and go, "Who's this Roger guy? Is there another storyboard artist I don't know about? Who is he?" And he kept saying, "No, I love Roger's work." And everyone's going, "Who the hell is Roger?" So when I met him, they go, Steve Frears introduces me to him, and he still didn't hear my name right. And he goes, "Yeah, this is our storyboard artist." He goes, "Oh, Roger, nice to meet you." I said, "Oh, nice to meet you, Dustin." So for 6 weeks, I would call Dustin Hoffman Dustin, and he would call me Roger. And he goes, "Roger, why do you call me Dustin?" I said, "Dustin, why do you call me Roger?" And he goes, "Isn't that your name?" I said, "No, it's Paul fucking Power. Can't you say?" "Oh, well, nice to meet you, Paul fucking Power." I said, "Dustin fucking Hoffman." That's great, nice guy. Really a fun fellow. Yeah. But anyway, with John Dixon, I got him to ink like 25 pages of my stuff for free. And in that story, I killed off Jim Hawke of Airhawk and the Flying Doctors.
I even inked a couple pages on that story.
Yeah, you did, because I drew it in John's style. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Question out there.
When you're storyboarding, how much freedom are you given from the script that the director might give you? How much freedom are you to play around? Do you have to play around?
Well, yeah, in some cases, yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. It depends on the director. Yeah, well, on Predator, the third act, the whole third act, I drew that. It wasn't written, and they didn't know how to kill the character off or anything. And quite frankly, John McTiernan was in serious trouble. Joel Silver used to just tear him a new arsehole. It was like vicious. That guy's vicious. He was always nice to me, but boy, he was vicious to McTiernan. It was kind of embarrassing to see. I had to walk out. I can't take this.
Anybody remember the Jimmy Smits Turner-produced Cisco Kid movie? The first 20 minutes of it is gangbusters. It goes to the devil after that. Well, it's because the first 20 minutes was all that Paul storyboarded.
Yeah, that's it. No, it's gone. But the thing is with Predator, he had shot the movie with a sort of praying mantis, different creature, kind of walk backwards, going forwards, sort of thing. They wouldn't allow me to see any of that stuff. So I never saw what guys like Bill Stout did, or some of the other Nicky Nats and ever wrote Predator, the first Predator. And since I knew Arnold, that was kind of fun. But anyway, I come up with the third act. I go, well, they don't have an ending, so I'll do this. So I just drew it, and McTiernan's like, yeah, it's good, because basically he had done his movie, and they said, we don't like this, except for the beginning, the Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos in Honduras. That's the only thing they liked. And then all the creature stuff I had to redo. And a lot of people think that I designed the character, but it's a guy named Wang who did it. But it's something I would design, but it's kind of rude. But anyway, so I had good fun doing that. The thing is, they didn't know how to kill the character, and I'd seen a Chuck Jones Roadrunner cartoon on TV, and I got the ending. So I deleted the log. You know, I set up the whole gag at the end with Arnold setting up a Roadrunner gag. And actually, if you're in trouble, I find to pull out gags from the Three Stooges that use them seriously, they work. People go, oh, I know that, but one time actually, I was storyboarding 2 films at the same time, and I drew the same opening sequence. It was the Predator sequence at the beginning, and I did the same thing for Earth Girls Are Easy, and I didn't realise until after I went, oh no, if these films come out at the same time, I'm toast. Well, Earth Girls Are Easy, the company went bankrupt and they didn't release that until 2 years later, but it's the same opening. I'm like, oh man, I've got to be really careful. But some directors, like Peter Berg, you work with them. If the script's really good, you know, you've got to do what's in the script. If you keep going off on tangents, you lose the plot, and the whole point is to serve the story. And it depends on what the director wants. So what I try and find out is, I try and find out from a director what they don't like. Because if they don't like something, then everything else is up for grabs. But there are certain techniques that DPs go, don't give me that. Go, okay. And then sometimes you go, oh Jesus, you've got to do that technique they don't like because it doesn't work. So, you know, I'm pretty lucky.
Okay, this will be the last question, right back there.
You were starting to tell a story earlier about Arnold Schwarzenegger meeting your sister, didn't you stop? What's the story?
Yeah. Well, he was, my sister Carol. It's fun. Oh, well, this relates to Predator. This is funny. I get into an argument with Bo Marks and John McTiernan, and we're really like going out, and I'm about to tell them to sod off, because I was in a studio and it was cold, and they were so poor. It sounds weird, doesn't it? 20th Century Fox, they couldn't turn on the bloody air conditioning for me, so I had to get a heater. I had to get my wife to get a heater so I could get, and I was getting mad about it. And then I get into this argument with these guys, and I said, look, I'm redrawing the whole end of your movie, what do you want? And it escalated, got stupid, and then suddenly this guy comes in, and he goes, Paul, how are you? And I go, oh, Arnold. And I didn't think he'd remember me. He goes, how's your sister Carol? I said, oh, she's good. She still talks about you. Oh, lovely girl, lovely girl. He said, I tell you what, we got the shotsies. And so we went off. And I said, how'd you know? He said, I was listening outside. He said, they're assholes. He said, I'm taking Paul for the rest of the day. I'll see you later. And that was it. And I got more direction from Arnold on the end of the film than I got from John McTiernan. So yeah, but anyway, my sister and Arnold were an item for a while. It's kind of fun. There's a reason why they call him the Austrian Oak, and I'll leave that to you.
Okay, on that note, because we're getting dangerously close to more tales of mixed nuts here, I'm going to have to cut it off there. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Power.